Tipp gets to lead this one.
Yeah, so, each week we talk about a stud to sit or somebody who, Greg says it the best. Nobody on your team is startable all the time. And especially in this week where it's one and done, you got to really, really focus in on some of your players. And some of your players might be stud or studly names, but they're not getting the stud performance that we want out of them. So we picked players that we are saying, who are we going to sit on our bench that's a stud? These players are usually in the top 12 of their performance over the course of the year. So there's some names on here that you'd be like, well, he's not a stud, but actually in reality, in the fantasy football league that Greg is in and be the Hall of Famer, these are studs for these teams. But right now we're sitting at 2-2 for last week. And for the year, we're at 30, 18, and 8. So we're a little over 53%, which we've dipped down a little bit. But, I'm going to do my best this week to get us back up on track. But I will say this, Greg, who is your player to sit in Week 15, playoff week edition?
Well, I think that one of the most volatile positions in football is tight end. Basically, if they score, they're going to be top 12, almost always. So when you're deciding who's going to be top 12 tight end, like I say, it comes down to who scores a TD, which it's very difficult to predict, to be honest. Henry actually defies this theory because he gets overwhelming usage. He's had 8+ targets in 4 of his last 5 games and over 6 in 6 of his last 7. But he's only scored 1 TD, and that was way back in Week 6. So this week he faces a Cardinals defense that is the 4th stingiest against tight ends in the league. Arizona allows on average 10.4 points per game, under 5 receptions for about 44 yards. Okay, and that's only 2 tight end TDs all season that they've given up. So I included that in their average, which is what got them to 10. But I just don't think this is the week that Henry breaks his TD drought. And with the bye weeks behind us, there's going to be more competition for the top 12 spots because there's going to be 4 to 6 more teams playing this week. So for me, it's Hunter Henry. Now, I don't know, Tipp, who's next?
Well, since you talked about tight ends, you started off the tight end trend. We're going to go to our Joe, who also has another tight end on there. So, Jaden, who is your player to sit in Week 15?
So my player to sit in Week 15 was Cade Otton. So I also have Cade Otton in one of my fantasy teams that I'm in the playoffs, and I'm having the problem of if I should trust him or not. And I can't trust him, in my opinion. I can't. And the reason why is because, again, he's playing the Chargers in a tough defense. And the last couple of weeks, he's fell off a bit. And the Chargers have only allowed 1 touchdown all season to tight ends. So I don't think he's going to get one this week. And Jalen McMillan is going to get more volume. He had 2 touchdowns last week, so that's going to take some away. And Otton also has only had about 3 catches a game. I mean, his targets have gone down since Mike Evans has come back. And last week, his 1 catch was for 40 yards. So 2 catches, 20 yards. I mean, if he doesn't get the touchdown, there's nothing really there. I mean, I can't trust him.
Yeah, so you're saying there's a lot of cards stacked against him. He has the tough matchup. He's got the other wide receivers or other playmakers on the team taking plays away from him or taking opportunities away from him. Yeah, it's a little tough, man. Although I love Cade Otton. All right, the Hawk. What about you, man?
So I'm going to go wide receiver, and I'm going to move a little higher in the rankings here, so I may burn myself. But I'm going to go for wide receiver 7, Jackson Smith-Njigba of Seattle. And my issue with him is since Metcalf has come back, he still put up some points, but he's had 7 targets. I think it was 5 targets and 4 targets in 3 games. Now he's going up against the Packers team that allows the 5th fewest points to wide receivers and has only given up 100 yards to 1 receiver all season. Do any of you guys want to guess which receiver that was? He came up earlier. I'll give you a hint.
What team?
Devonta Smith?
Yeah. No, Trump, I think you just say, yeah, it's AJ Brown, or Tipp. It was AJ Brown in week 1. They're just getting warmed up. So it does mean that JSN might be a little bit touchdown dependent. He's got 4 or 5 on the year, so he can do it, but I wouldn't want to bank on it. Now, the one thing I will say that makes me a little bit nervous, I did look up his matchup on Pro Football Focus. He's going against Javon Butler, who's only graded at 54. So PFF seems to like the matchup, but over.
And we locked. Chris, we'll bring you back in a second. I wanted to ask him because as a Michigan fan, I love him dissing an Ohio State wide receiver, to be honest.
I knew you were going to love that one, Greg.
I got to love that one. But Chris, are you back with us?
Nah,
Can you talk to us? I can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah, he's frozen on my end. Well, I'll give you mine, guys. And if he comes back on, or when we get him back on, we'll get some more questions from him on that one. Mine is, I went a little high as well. I went Josh Jacobs. Look, last week, 3 touchdowns. He didn't have much on the ground as far as yardage goes, but he did get to the inside the end zone 3 times. So, look, Josh Jacobs this week, he's going against a team in the Seattle Seahawks that have given up. There's 5 teams. There's only 5 other teams that have given up less rushing yards in the last 3 games. And look, they are giving under 84 rushing yards. The other thing too, only Denver and Seattle are the teams that have not given up a touchdown in the last 3 weeks to running backs or a rushing touchdown in general. So that's another tough matchup for them. The defensive lines are playing really well, especially with Leonard Williams. And what he's been doing the last few weeks. Got the touchdown 2 weeks ago and had a really good game last week. So I think this is going to be a tough one for Josh Jacobs. And what I think is going to be a weird game Sunday night. I think it's going to be one of those higher than what we think scoring games, but it's not going to be a very entertaining game. It's going to be a lot of just dink and dunk, not a lot of downfield throws, especially from the Seahawks side. But, look, hopefully they can turn around. Hopefully DK Metcalf does some things. But for me, Josh Jacobs is a guy that I am sitting this week.
Hey, I've got to add a couple things here. First and foremost, as much as I tease Tipp, okay, the dude is on fire with STUDS to sit. All right, he's 10-3-1, I think. No,
something like that.
9-3-1. 9-3-1 going into this week, I think. And last week he said to sit Mahomes, and was right. Okay, and so we got the hawk back. So Chris, are you good?
Yeah, I'm on my phone with data, so this should work. If it doesn't, I apologize in advance, guys.
Oh, no, we're just glad to get you back. Do you want to finish what you were saying?
Just that he's going against Javon Butler, so PFF may disagree with me, but the Packers, they did a great job even against the Lions last week, against the pass at least. I just don't fully trust him given the low volume of targets. I'll leave it there.
Okay, so I want to bring up the second point. I already talked about how good Tipp is at this segment. Chris just gave you guys, if you want to get into this industry, Chris just gave you guys a big hint on how to separate yourself from the masses. All right? He uses PFF, he uses game logs, he looks at trends. He doesn't just look at overall stats. He looks at how things are going today. He considers injuries, he considers coaching. That's how a pro operates. And that's the difference between, a fly-by-night site and a site that's professional. So having been around this industry since the 90s, I've seen some really good people, and pretty much everybody I've run into is willing to help you. So if you want to get ahead in this industry, reach out to Chris, reach out to me, reach out to Tipp. We will help you succeed because we just want everybody to succeed. We just love this hobby this much. And I just think, of these, I wanted to say Tipp has been amazing. We're in week 15, and Tipp he's got 1 tie and 3 losses. That's 4. So he is 10 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. Now, a tie happens when you take a running back or wide receiver who's top 12 and he finishes 13 through 24. Still startable, but not a stud. You don't get the studly numbers you want. Bye weeks are done, people. So, there's a lot more competition for those top spots now. So the guys that are marginal are going to drop down a little bit. And I'm amazed at how well Tipp has done, because this is new to him. He's never done anything like studs to sit before this year. So, Tipp, if you could, please tell us, of the 4, you've got the 4 people that were picked by the 4 different analysts. Other than yours, who do you like the best?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Cade Otton one, because look, Jaden laid it out. I mean, he's going against a tough defense, first of all, and that Chargers defense, they're not only tough, they operate their offense so slowly that you're not going to get a lot of opportunities. And when you get opportunities, you got to try to beat that defense, and that defense has been playing lights out. So it's really a tough thing for Otton this week. And then not only that, Jalen McMillan, Mike Evans, we already know about Sterling Shepard, Rachaad White coming out of the backfield. If Bucky Irving play, it's just so many mouths there to feed. And with a possible lower game script or lower scoring game, then it just might not be in the cards for Cade Otton this week. So that one is actually one that raised my eyebrows, and I think that was a really good pick, because he had a stretch there where he was the guy. It was him and Bowers fighting it out each week, and then now you see, just because one player comes back or several players come back, then yes, it could hurt your chances, especially as a tight end.
True enough. Now, I think you missed this, Chris, but I was really happy with your pick, because I'm a diehard Michigan fan. So whenever anybody picks against the Buckeyes, I'm ecstatic, baby. And when people pick a player that's coached by Jim Harbaugh, again, ecstatic. So I want to go to you, Chris. Of the other 3 choices, which one did you like best?
Well, that's tricky. I like boldness, so I think I'm gonna have to say the Josh Jacobs pick to me was one I like, because I think if that's a big gamble. Jacobs has been blowing up, so I really like the fact that went on a limb. You're taking a chance on Josh, someone who's been so phenomenal, and it is a tough matchup. So appreciate you, and appreciate that you're putting yourself out there, because you're talking about one of the best running backs in the game.
Well, I did that 2 weeks ago with Saquon Barkley, and he was 1 play away, 25 yards and a touchdown away from me predicting that and being right on that.
He'd have been RB25 without that 8.5 points.
It hurt me, because I was sitting there with my girlfriend. I was like, "Babe, look, Saquon Barkley," and she's like, "Oh, I know who Saquon Barkley is. He's a good player." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's really good, but he's not doing anything. Look at the first half. Look at his numbers. Look at what he's doing."
Zoom.
And then look, the final part of that, I was like, "Oh wow."
That's only the 3rd time you were wrong.
He did that
though.
2 weeks in a row, right? 2 weeks in a row, he was having kind of a good game going into the 4th quarter, and then 2 weeks in a row, 4th quarter, he breaks 2 long touchdowns and goes from he's okay to he's like the number 1 running back.
Yeah,
but a fantasy guy doesn't care when you score. Jaden, we got to get your opinion. We got about 45 seconds. Tell us which pick you like best other than your own.
So again, going with the guys, I think Josh Jacobs is a great pick. I think the 3 touchdowns last week helped him out a lot. The Seattle Seahawks, though, have only allowed 8 touchdowns to running backs. So I feel like if he doesn't find the end zone as much as he did, it's not going to be the biggest week for him. So,
all right. You want to crown him? Then crown her ass. Let's go pay our bills.